Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Swallowed Star 2 Origin Continent based on novel. So let's start. The primordial cosmos will wanted to negotiate, and in response, Luo Feng sent forth his spiritual will with a single thought, boom tilde tilde tilde, the formidable might of the godly kings will make the primordial cosmos will considerably wary. I'm not here to negotiate with you. The source ground of the primordial cosmos must open up to me completely. Luo Feng conveyed his thoughts. Will you agree, or will you refuse? The primordial cosmos will send out fluctuations. It had the entire primordial cosmos as its carrier, and the source ground possessed extremely strong protection. It was capable of resistance. I admit, you can marshal forces to fight back, and perhaps this divine power incarnation of mine will collapse. Luo Feng gazed upon the vast and boundless primordial cosmos, thoughts transmitting, but if one of my divine power incarnations collapses, I will immediately send out a second one, a third one, endlessly. In this confrontation, your defeat is certain. The primordial cosmos will fell silent. Originally, the primordial ancestor attempted to replace the primordial cosmos will with his own, using the virtual universe, to cover the entire primordial cosmos, launching an internal attack suddenly, posing a greater threat. Yet once he failed, he was suppressed by the primordial cosmos. It was Luo Feng who later resolved the catastrophe of the sector beast, convincing the primordial cosmos to release the primordial ancestor. As for Luo Feng's divine power incarnation attacking from the outside, the demand on will was higher, yet it was also safer. While it's difficult for the will to invade the primordial cosmos from outside, Luo Feng's thoughts transferred. I have endless opportunities. How many times can you stop me? Tilde tilde tilde, the primordial cosmos will transmitted information. It had multiple dealings with Luo Feng and wanted to persuade him. Indeed, we have some connections, so I am giving you a chance. If you won't even grant me the opportunity for comprehension, you can't blame me. Luo Feng's eyes turned cold as his will became more terrifying, surging massively, already invading the primordial cosmos. Luo Feng's will, dispersed into billions, infiltrating everywhere, yet also formed into a cohesive oppression, making it very hard for the primordial cosmos will to withstand. There was a vast gap between their realms. So be it, perhaps the primordial cosmos will is not willing to yield. Then, I can only take action. Luo Feng shook his head. Humans needed meat to eat, and for cultivators facing opportunities bestowed by heaven and earth, they could not afford to miss them. Seizing the chance to control the primordial cosmos was the greatest opportunity for those braving the reincarnation era, its value on par with the Lai Yuan technique. Once obtained, 1 foot was already stepping into the godly king level. But of course, securing this opportunity was extremely difficult. The chances of an eternal true god successfully soul transferring were rather low, although primal chaos overlords stood a much better chance. However, the powerhouses of the 3,000 primordial cosmoses started from too low a point, and had to follow the path of laws, making it incredibly difficult to become eternal true gods, let alone primal chaos overlords. Moreover, if their growth was too slow, they would face the catastrophe of the sector beast. The sector beast could devour primordial cosmoses, which still had the opportunity to grow anew. However, the small universes of the eternal true gods had no means to withstand a grown sector beast. This showed how incredibly difficult it was to take control of the primordial cosmos. With the opportunity before him, how could Luo Feng let it slip by? Boom tilde tilde tilde, Luo Feng's spiritual will had already struck into the primordial cosmos. Wherever the primordial cosmos will tried to defend, it crumbled away. Suddenly, the primordial cosmos will sent out a message. Luo Feng was surprised for a moment, then laughed. I thought you truly wouldn't yield. At this moment, the information conveyed by the primordial cosmos was clear. It conceded, bowed down, willing to completely open the source ground of the primordial cosmos. Its only request was to hope not to be erased. It had wisdom, it too wanted to live. Rest assured, I keep my word, Luo Feng responded to it. Immediately, Luo Feng stepped forth and entered into the primordial cosmos. The vast dark region ahead naturally formed into a wormhole passage leading to a place of mystery. When I resolved the catastrophe of the sector beast, I felt the great destruction of the primordial cosmos in one corner of the source ground. Luo Feng reflected silently, but now, before the strength on display, the primordial cosmos will has yielded, allowing me to comprehend the operations of the primordial cosmos laws at my leisure. Following this natural wormhole passage, Luo Feng arrived at a vast and mysterious space. This immense space was impossible to find with ordinary senses. It drifted with countless specks of light. These countless specks were scanned over by Luo Feng with a thought. Some seemed minuscule, but contained immensely vast energy. Others, however, were filled with a great deal of information. The primordial cosmos underwent great destruction and then began anew, flourishing and declining, only to be destroyed again in a continual cycle. Luo Feng mused, the source ground keeps records of information from cycle to cycle in the reincarnation era. Information of various civilizations, of powerful secret techniques. But for Luo Feng, these meant little. After all, the creatures living within the primordial cosmos were too weak. See a th.novel.ia.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Whoosh! The primeval space enveloped Luo Feng in colorful radiance, as if he were clothed in a robe of colors. At that moment, Luo Feng's will extended instantly. At that moment, the primordial cosmos was like a physical body, his will fused with it as one. He himself was the primordial cosmos. At that moment, Luo Feng could feel himself embodying the primordial cosmos, breathing in, drawing in endless energy from the universe ocean, transforming into endless life energy stored within the primeval space, while also exhaling a large amount of harmful substances. But even the primordial cosmos, in its operation, would gradually decline and inevitably move towards ultimate destruction. Only through destruction could it welcome new life. Truly wonderful, Luo Feng felt. The countless celestial bodies within the primordial cosmos, or even a grain of sand, a wisp of air, all were incarnations of Luo Feng. Luo Feng could feel their life cycles. Some flowers, grasses, and trees might have extremely short life cycles, while celestial bodies could last much longer. Even galaxies and star fields have life cycles. Galaxies and star fields do not possess conscious life. However, flesh and blood life, plant life, and so forth, can indeed gain consciousness and embark on the path of evolution. All this is the influence of the laws in operation, Luo Feng observed, and his understanding of the functioning of laws also deepened. From a macro perspective, the operation of the laws in the primordial cosmos guides the evolution of the entire cosmos. But on a micro level, the operation of many laws leads to changes in everything, even brimming with infinite possibilities. The entire human race, including Luo Feng himself, is the result of these laws in operation. An invisible hand guides the evolution of all things. And this invisible hand is the operation of the cosmic laws. Luo Feng felt keenly, knowing that the 10 fundamental laws were only the most superficial aspect. It's like 1 begets 2, 2 begets 3, 3 begets everything. The 10 fundamental laws are merely 3, it's their ability to create everything that fascinates Luo Feng. On a planet within Luo Feng's miniature universe, Shushin wasn't in the mood to watch the planet's tree, instead staying by her husband's side as Luo Feng sat cross-legged under the tree with his eyes closed. I wonder how Luo Feng is faring against the will of the primordial cosmos. Shushin was very worried, as that was the will of the primordial cosmos, after all. Suddenly, she noticed Luo Feng opening his eyes. How is it? Shushin asked immediately. The will of the primordial cosmos has yielded, Luo Feng said with a smile. It has opened up the primeval space to me, indeed a great aid to cultivation. That's good to hear, Shushin said happily. She had always been worried about her husband's days on the other end of the samsara channel. After all, his true body was there, and if he died, it would be a true death. She couldn't help much, so seeing her husband gain a great opportunity naturally made her happy. Is it very dangerous on the other side of the samsara channel? Shushin asked. It's all right, Luo Feng replied with a smile. Your husband and I keep a low profile and don't cause trouble, and even if there are some, they are just small issues. The land of origin is said to be dangerous, naturally hiding endless perils. If not deemed dangerous, and one keeps a low profile, and doesn't provoke terrifying existences, it can still be managed quite comfortably. At the source ground within the primordial cosmos, Luo Feng immersed in comprehension for a long time before finally stopping. When the 10 fundamental laws are completely merged into one, it forms the law of primal chaos, Luo Feng murmured, and the operation of the primordial cosmos laws is far more vast than the law of primal chaos. Merging with the primordial cosmos, feeling its breath, its movements, has greatly aided my comprehension of the laws. Luo Feng looked into the distance. The vast space wherein the source ground was located, extremely large, also concealed a true core. This was also recorded in the intelligence from his master, mountain sitting guest, and from the Duan Dong River lineage. The will of the primordial cosmos didn't dare to be evasive. Once it said it would open up completely, it had to be complete. If it was evasive, the consequences would likely be very serious. It was well aware of Luo Feng's temperament. With a step, Luo Feng had already arrived at the true core of the source ground. As soon as he arrived, Luo Feng saw the substantial manifestation of an immense Dao. At first glance, it seemed like an endless, winding dragon with 24 claws, each dragon's scale containing endless information, and each of the 24 claws contained information far beyond the law of primal chaos. Its vastness and depth were indescribable. His perfect divine body was strong, but in front of it, as fragile as floating dust. Its size was infinite. It was hidden within the source ground of the primordial cosmos, but its vastness, Luo Feng felt, transcended the primordial cosmos. It was boundlessly immense. Merely by watching, Luo Feng naturally received a great deal of information. Is this the legendary core of the primordial cosmos, the great Dao of life origin? Luo Feng looked up at it, so astounding. At first glance, it is a serpentine dragon. On closer inspection, it resembles a river that runs through past and future. Time and space cannot erode it. It is an eternal existence. And yet another look, it is an endless magnificent godly body. Luo Feng had once seen the imposing corpse of God King Jin with his own eyes, and compared to what he now saw, it was utterly insignificant. That seemed to be the ultimate pursuit of his perfect divine body. From different angles come different views. It is the origin of countless lives. It even represents the very concept of life itself. The great Dao of life origin. Luo Feng murmured, a complete origin great Dao, without any concealment, right before my eyes. This is the greatest opportunity to control the primordial cosmos. In the heart of the source ground of the primordial cosmos, Luo Feng was gazing up at the majestic and vast great Dao of life origin before him. Previously in cultivation, Luo Feng had scarce resources, far less than the elites nurtured by the Shi Kingdom and New Country, let alone compared to the elites of the two ancient countries. The calamity beast diagram that excited him was merely a cheap resource sold externally by the flame wind ancient country. The so-called void diagram paired with calamity beast diagram was also circulated among the descendants of the big families in the flame wind ancient country. Clearly, in the eyes of the flame wind ancient country, such resources were trifling. Yet with just these resources, Luo Feng's will broke through to the godly king level. The great Dao of life origin is right in front of my eyes, and Morosa can also demonstrate some mysteries of the great Dao of destruction origin for me. At least with these two Dao of origin, my cultivation will be much smoother, thought Luo Feng. There are many types of origin great Dao. Great powers cultivating their descendants can choose a suitable path according to what they are good at and equip them with corresponding resources. Luo Feng had fewer choices available to him. Given the possibility to choose, Luo Feng was already very grateful. What I comprehend most deeply is the source of life and death. Both the life origin and destruction origin are quite suitable for me. Luo Feng was quite satisfied. According to the information left by my master, the primal chaos overlord, upon comprehending the threshold of the origin great Dao, one can become a godly king. Upon becoming a godly king, one can then begin to glimpse some of the aspects of the origin great Dao they are comprehending. Before becoming a godly king, the origin great Dao is invisible and intangible. Naturally, there are indirect methods, such as a godly king personally displaying the Dao to a disciple, or some rare treasures that can manifest parts of the Dao. Owning the primordial cosmos allows one to see the great Dao of life origin. The Dao is before my very eyes, but to comprehend it, I must rely on myself. Luo Feng was very clear on this. The two ancient countries had numerous opportunities, but how many could become a godly king? Even Emperor Chu Yu was at the stage of eternal true God now. Regardless of how abundant the resources are, it still depends on the individual. The Calamity Beast diagram was openly sold throughout the land of origin, but how many have a will at the godly king level? Life origin, Luo Feng, sitting cross-legged in the void, watched the great Dao of life origin before him. Just by watching, a wealth of information surged into his mind. This serpentine dragon before him, each of its scales imprinted vast amounts of information into Luo Feng's consciousness, and those 24 claws were even more so, constantly inundating him with vast information, with a swarm of information about the great Dao of life origin being too vast and complex, flooding in all at once. As the massive information surged in, Luo Feng's past understanding of the laws seemed superficial. The information from the life origin carried a supreme beauty with each piece, naturally changing many aspects of Luo Feng's cognition. This isn't right. Luo Feng had only comprehended for a moment before he immediately woke up, and in an instant, he dispersed this incarnation of divine power. In the land of origin, Yu Kingdom, Huyang City. Luo Feng was also in seclusion in the underground hall, and at this moment, he felt a sense of fear. So, facing the complete life origin directly is so dangerous. Luo Feng was secretly alarmed. No wonder soul transferring the primordial cosmos requires a high level of will. If the will is too low, facing the life origin directly can easily lead to complete loss of self. See a thnovelier.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. One's own understanding can be completely altered by the impact of more profound Dao information. It could even drive one completely insane, which is entirely possible. What I control is truly mine. I must take it step by step, absorbing what I need, discard what is currently unsuitable for me, establishing the foundation of my own Dao. Luo Feng understood that there was nothing wrong with the massive information, but his own realm was too low. It's like asking an elementary school student on Earth, who had just learned addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, and some basic equations, to immediately face a deluge of higher mathematics information. Most importantly, this influx was chaotic. The best approach should be from low to high, from shallow to deep, evolving gradually. Every step of the foundation must be solid to have the hope of fully analyzing the entire life origin. If one were to absorb all the information, it would only contaminate one's cognition. Fortunately, I have reached the godly king's will and can maintain absolute clarity. Luo Feng knew that face-to-face with life origin was an opportunity not less than the Lai Yuan technique, but the prerequisite was to be able to grasp it. If not able to grasp it, it can be harmful rather than beneficial. Starting with my original cognition as the core, I began to absorb what is useful to me. Luo Feng segmented his memory. The memories before watching the life origin were one part, the memories contacted after watching the life origin were another part, and he began selectively absorbing information from the latter part, temporarily sealing away what was momentarily useless. At Luo Feng's level, memory control was quite an easy task. First sort through the information, slowly integrating it into myself. Luo Feng calmed down to cultivate. Only after sorting out, researching, reflecting, summarizing, and absorbing all the information from this observation, could he proceed to watch the great Dao of life origin again. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Time passed, and Luo Feng temporarily stopped comprehending the 3000 void calamity beast diagram, focusing on the comprehension of laws, as the taste of continuous slow improvements was indeed wonderful. This was much more efficient than the comprehension he had done over the past 2 decades. Master, Morosa came to the door of the underground hall, conveying through the mind, I've digested it all, you can let me in now. Morosa also found this somewhat strange. In the past, the master often came out to rest, but this time the comprehension session was quite long. Buzz. The doors to the underground hall opened, and when Morosa saw Luo Feng, a knot formed in his heart. Could it be that his master was not too pleased? After all, Luo Feng was immersed in the comprehension process, and Morosa had suddenly interrupted him, leaving his thoughts still afloat. Hurry up, Luo Feng beckoned and sent Morosa into his exclusive layer of space within the Star Tower, then continued to comprehend the mysteries of law. Arriving at his own layer in the Star Tower, Morosa sat cross-legged in front of the corpse of divine monarch Shuiyun, immediately beginning to absorb. The divine monarch's body started to disintegrate, and the dissolving divine power and bloodline surged toward Morosa. A smile of satisfaction appeared on Morosa's face as he began to absorb the essence. This bloodline of Shuiyun, could it be of the primal chaos realm level? Morosa could tell the difference as soon as he began absorbing it. Even if Yuqian Shu's bloodline was special, it was fundamentally different from that of Shuiyun's corpse. Before his death, Shuiyun had undergone a bloodline transformation, resulting in a primal chaos realm bloodline. This is a huge gain, exclaimed Morosa joyfully, and he immediately began absorbing and assimilating continuously. In another layer of the Star Tower space, Luo Feng was sitting cross-legged. The divine power incarnation in the source ground of the primordial cosmos was facing the great Dao of life origin for the 9th time, naturally receiving a wealth of Dao information. In just over an hour, Luo Feng stopped. He began to digest the information about the Dao he had received this time. Over the prior lengthy period, Luo Feng's realm had reached the pinnacle of an eternal true God. However, having faced the great Dao of life origin just 9 times, Luo Feng had advanced further in all aspects of comprehension. I originally thought that the transition from the pinnacle of an eternal true God to the primal chaos realm, even with my godly king's will and highly efficient comprehension, would require a long time to accumulate. But now, facing the great Dao of life origin, the speed of accumulation is much faster, Luo Feng mused to himself. Of course, that was just the way it was. The great Dao is laid out before him, but it must still be comprehended selectively and progress must be made step by step. Just like the tangible manifestation of the primal chaos laws in the primal chaos ruins, how many can comprehend the law of primal chaos? Huyang City was bustling as usual. The countless citizens inside did not care about the conflict between the Sha Kingdom and Yu country, as such strife had already continued for an endless expanse of time, longer than the lifespan of a true god. They were long accustomed to it. Luo Feng and Morosa, master and servant, were both in seclusion. Inside the cave mansion, only Moyu Qingyang was left to guard alone. Finally, one day, in Morosa's dedicated layer of the Star Tower space, he sat cross-legged where the divine body of Shuiyun had long been absorbed. Suddenly, Morosa's body trembled, and a terrifying aura was released from his figure, sweeping across that layer of the Star Tower space. This aura, full of destructive and murderous intent, even startled Luo Feng from his lengthy meditation. What's going on? Luo Feng sensed the entire Star Tower naturally, and with a thought, he was already in that layer of space. Luo Feng looked at Morosa in front of him. Morosa was still sitting cross-legged, but was engulfed by the grandiose, turbulent, and terrifying aura of destruction that unceasingly swept the entire space. Merely facing this terrifying aura, Luo Feng's body naturally exerted blade technique domain as protection, resisting this terrifying aura. The sector beast's breakthrough to the primal chaos realm is indeed terrifying, Luo Feng said inwardly. After the unstable aura of destruction wreaked havoc for a long time, Morosa's body also began to transform, effortlessly taking on his truest form. A high and perfect life form appeared, surpassing the beauty of any species. This beauty even contained the supreme mysteries. Luo Feng understood that the sector beast was born from the great Dao of destruction origin, and its body naturally reached the perfect limit of every realm. A full day passed before Morosa slowly opened his eyes. Master, the domain within me has completely transformed into the primal chaos realm. Morosa looked at Luo Feng and said, now my body also needs to transform into the primal chaos realm. You don't need to worry about me, just focus on your breakthrough, Luo Feng watched from the side. Morosa nodded. Boom tilde. Morosa's body began to evolve, transforming from the eternal realm to the primal chaos realm, every bit of strength reaching a new level. In just a moment, his body had completely transformed. Watching Morosa now, Luo Feng felt that, in a head-on clash, the primal chaos realm Morosa might be able to completely shatter him with a single slap. Both being perfect life forms, the gap between the primal chaos realm and the eternal realm was too great. Master, my body has already transformed, and my divine power is 100 times purer, which is why my frame has decreased substantially. Morosa reverted to his simple appearance and said, I need to absorb energy continuously, to supply my body's growth. This process might last for about 1 era. The growth of the body is always slow, Luo Feng nodded. The first lengthy seclusion he had undergone upon coming to the land of origin had allowed his godly body to grow to its limit. Your godly body at the true god level had a maximum height of 18 billion kilometers, just like mine, Luo Feng asked. At the primal chaos realm level, how high do you estimate you can grow? The information transmitted by the destruction of the origin lets me understand that my maximum height, at the primal chaos realm, should exceed 1 trillion kilometers, Morosa replied. This video will end here.